What's up everybody, welcome back to the studio. My name is Ted, and in today's video I want to show you how to design this mobile onboarding screen. Now this is something that I created just for fun. Nova isn't a real bank, and I encourage any young designers who are just starting in their design journey to also just create fun and fictitious projects where you have full creative freedom to design whatever you'd like and you're not bound by any kind of brand limitations. Also, another thing is I linked the asset file down below, so feel free to check that out, download it, and load it into your Figma so that you can follow along during the tutorial. So with those things covered, let's jump into the video. Alrighty, so we're going to use these assets to build our screen, and now I'm just going to create an artboard for our mobile device. So if you just select A on your keyboard, you should see these presets from Figma, and they have iPhone, tablets, desktop, presentation, etc. We're going to start with this iPhone 16 Pro Max. Got to stay up to date with the latest and greatest sizes. And this will be our artboard which we build our design on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layout grid and show you how I set that up. So you want to switch this to columns, and usually I do about, let's say, see what 8 looks like. And for the margin we want to do 12, so we don't want anything kind of closer than 12 pixels to the borders, and I might even do 16 just to give us a little bit of breathing room. And this guide will be kind of just help us align things on the screen here. You don't necessarily need to stick to it super closely, but this just helps us from designing from outside or too close to the edges and that sort of thing. So I'm going to turn it off right now, Shift G to hide the guide, and we're going to start designing our screen. And first thing I'm going to do is change the background to dark, like off black color, so OF here. And now we're going to draw our container shape. So we'll make that white, and then we'll double click and add a, let's do a 32 pixel radius so it's nice and round there. And I'm going to take the logo here that I put together, we're going to make it black as well, and then we're going to scale it down a bit, place it right there. And now let's add our text. So I'm just going to type in banking simplified here. And I'm going to use DM Sans for this, which is a Google font, so you should have no problem downloading it, or it should be already pre-installed on your device. So let's just kind of put in our text at the moment. We've got our text, we'll kind of scale it down a little bit. I'm going to adjust all this, the sizing here later. Right now I'm just kind of building out the elements on the screen. Let's add this button here with some radius. And for the button, let's change it to sign up. I'll show you how to set this up with auto layout just so that it's easier to control this button moving forward. So once you have your text typed in, you just control or command G, make a group, and then you click this little button, use auto layout. And now this is an auto layout element. So we're gonna add a background to it. So you add this fill, and then here you can add the width and the height to your button, but you can also just drag it. But the cool thing now is it'll be responsive, and you don't have to worry about kind of small alignments and spacing, that sort of thing. So let's add some radius to the button corners. And here's where I'm going to look at my grid and just align the button to the grid. So there's a sign up, and this is about 60 pixels tall. And then I'm going to add a second one, and I'm going to click Shift X to create an outline. And for that one, we're going to do login as a secondary. So you always want to have a primary button for the user to take, a secondary, and sometimes we include a tertiary, which is pretty standard for these login screens. Let's have this say terms and conditions apply. We always have to have some kind of terms and conditions on a banking app. So Let's make this a little bit smaller, 14 pixels. Alrighty, so we have our buttons, and I think it looks a little bit large, so let's change it to 55 pixel height for these buttons. And then we'll just kind of put that together. For our text, see, like this to me looks a little bit too close to the edge. So this is where I'm gonna break that grid a little bit and just visually align it. Now for DM Sans, I don't like it that thin. Let's do maybe semi-bold, and instead of auto vertical spacing, let's start with 130%. Let's change it back to 100. That looks a little bit too squished there, so let's try 115. That's looking a lot better. And then I'm just gonna see the spacing here. And I usually just do even numbers when I space things out. So that's looking pretty decent, but I feel like that one thing is we don't want to get too, you want to get bold with your type, especially with this onboarding screen, and because there's not that much text happening on the screen. So I'm just gonna scale it. You click K and you drag, that'll scale it. So right now it's at 69, let's just make it 70 pixels. Let's change it back to medium. I like the way that looks. For the text right here, we have 20, let's change that to 18. And then we'll break the line right there and earn, or yeah, let's keep it like that. And then let's make this semi-bold, so we highlight what the reward or the bonus that they're getting. That should kind of cover the setup at the bottom here. Now I want to show you how to create this business or this credit card. So I'm just going to take this container here and I'm going to add some rounding to it. And we're going to make a blue card as well as a darker black card for a more premium look, just to show that we have different options. And these two images, I just dragged them in here to show you that sometimes you don't have to create everything from scratch. These are generated in Midjourney, just kind of abstract backgrounds that'll look really nice on the cards when we apply some kind of blending modes. So that'll help us speed up the process and create really awesome looking cards. So let's design this first card here. I'm just going to use this abstract shape. I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to select all three layers and click Control Command M, which will mask it for me. And this basically sets that very bottom layer as the mask. I'm going to scale this up, and then let's start adding some blending options to see what looks good on here. So I like the way this soft light looks, but I'll just keep looking through all of these. So I like the hard light, but this is a little too dark. So let's just lower the opacity here. And then I'm just going to kind of scale it towards the corner here. Just exploring. Actually, the plus darker looks pretty good as well. So kind of like that, the way that looks. So let's go with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste one of the card elements, and then I'll drag it on top. And I'm going to convert it with Shift X into a stroke so that we can add this subtle outline to the card. And it's a little difficult to design on this background. So I'm just going to draw a dark background so that we can see what we're doing. It's a lot better. Now let's select that stroke again, and we're going to select the background colors here, and then slightly make it pop, make it a little bit lighter. Something like that, I think looks good. I'm also going to tweak the background color here of the actual card, just to make it a little bit more of a rich blue. So from the top it's a little bit lighter, and then at the bottom it's this darker blue color. And maybe we'll make it a little bit more vibrant. Now let's add our little chip and logo to the card. So the chip's usually around this area. the logo, we'll scale it down and place it on the right. And I want to add a little bit of a shine to this so that it's not just gray. So we'll make it lighter and then a tad bit darker just to get that glow going. And I'm going to change this to a bluish gray instead of on the red tone. And I think we can also add like a very subtle stroke here. I'm just copying and pasting the same stroke on top, the same color on top of the stroke that we just added. Just make it very subtle. And maybe we can do like 0.5 thickness, something like that. Alrighty, I think this is a little too rounded for the card, so let's just make it 24 pixels. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now we want to name this card so that we can differentiate the different tiers. So let's name this Platinum. And I think to make this look a little bit cooler, we're gonna go all caps here. And then let's make it bolder. And we're also gonna add a little bit of this same color to the text itself so that it doesn't just look like pure white, and just kind of play around with the way that the gradient looks here. So we have the card, the chip here, the logo. All right, cool, we got our first card. Now I'm just gonna redo the same process, but for the other card. So I'm gonna copy this other pattern that we have, the darker one, scale it up, and then we're also going to explore with some of the blending modes. Let me just change the background of the actual card. So let's go with the darker color here. Give it a little gradient. And for the blending mode, let's see what looks good. This exclusion is looking pretty sweet. I'm just gonna change the appearance and make it a little bit darker. Maybe scale it up so it's not as busy there. And let's just increase the gradient that we have on the card here. Now I'm gonna change this outline to match this card. So same process as the previous one. I'm gonna change it to 1 pixel from 2 and just look a little bit sharper. All right, sweet. So we have our 2 cards created. We have the background piece, and now let's just kind of style and make everything look really nice. So I'm gonna copy this down here. And our other card here, oh actually, let's just group it first, make sure that it's grouped, and copy the second card. I'm gonna scale them down, then we'll tilt them a bit so that we can display what we want to display here, just give them a little glimpse of the card with the secondary one here. Something like this. All right, that's looking pretty good, but we are missing a little bit of the kind of shadow and some more color work on the background here. So I'm going to draw another rectangle and just make it dark. And then I'm gonna use the shortcut to send it to the back. And we're gonna add a radial gradient. So we're gonna start with dark, and then in the middle, we'll have a little bit of like a blue glow. You see how that just adds a little bit more interest to the background, so it's not just plain black. I also want to add a drop shadow on this card so that it has some depth. So let's do effect, drop shadow, and I'm just gonna play around with these options here. So I'm gonna make it larger and then I'm gonna move it down so that it kind of sits on top of the card and casts a shadow down here. And then I'm gonna change this from black to blue. And I recommend just using like dark blues instead of black for drop shadows. It just makes them look a little cleaner and less muddy. So we'll make that pretty subtle. Just explore the color here. And I like the way that's coming together. Just make this a little bit darker. And then let's also drop a shadow on this blue card. So I'm just gonna copy the same shadow and paste it, but you'll see how now it's on a dark background in the blue. You can see it's casting blue shadow, so we gotta go even darker here. Like that, maybe a little bit less. And it's pretty subtle, but it's these little details that really make a difference. So we have our cards there. Let's scale. Now let's work on this section. Because we're using kind of the blue and blue is a safe and trustworthy color, we're gonna use blue for our CTAs. I know how original, blue for a bank. Let's add a radial gradient inside of this button, and then let's just pull some colors from this card here. I'm gonna make it just a slight gradient on the button itself. And let's make this text white and make it medium. Same thing down here. For this button, I'm going to change the stroke color to the blue from the button up top. Maybe make it 2 pixels. No, I think let's stick with 1. And then for the terms and conditions, we want to do a lighter color. You don't want all the text to be dark black. You want to have distinction within the text color, so that we have a primary text and a secondary. So let's change this secondary text to a lighter color, something like this. And this, we also don't want to just use pure black for this here. We're gonna make it just a darker version of the blue. And same thing for our logo there. For the terms, as I mentioned, we want to make it even lighter since it's a tertiary and it's like not as important as the other colors or the other buttons. So let's just make it a lighter color. And then terms and conditions, maybe let's underline this. Let's Command U on Mac. And let's make this regular. All right, cool, so we got that set up. I'm just gonna make this auto layout so that I don't have to worry about that. And this as well. And I'll just work on the fine kind of spacing details. This is where I just kind of explore things, and you know, sometimes you want to zoom out, see what the screen looks like. Smaller, closer, just helps get some perspective. So I like that size. Let's just update this to 72 pixels. Make the text nice and large. Let's see what semi-bold looks like. I think that's a little too bold, so let's go back to medium. Maybe that looks better. Get started with knowing today and earns, and then we put 60,000 bonus points on the bottom since it's bolder and has some division there. And there we go, we basically have our screen. From here on, you can just continue tweaking and exploring things and seeing how you can improve it. A few things that come to mind is like just adding a glare to the cards, so you can draw a shape like this, make it white, add effects, layer blur, blur it out, and then make it lower the opacity so that we have like this nice little glare here. And that kind of helps give it some depth. And then for this card, since it's peeking out from this bottom, we can add a little glare right here. And yeah, that's our screen. And from here, I would use a Figma plugin to create a mockup, or download a Photoshop file, place it on a mockup, dress it up a little bit, and make it really appealing for, you know, Dribbble or other socials. And just like that, we have our onboarding screen. And one last thing before we wrap up, I never changed this to Noor, so let's update the name of this card. Noor is typically like a higher tier card, and it's usually represented with a black like luxury color, so I updated that and I think we should be good. And like I said, you can just continue tweaking. The more like little details and things that you add to it, the more you keep messing with it, the better it'll look. So I encourage you to just continue exploring, making things look awesome. But there we have it. If you enjoyed that video, you want to see more videos just like it, please drop a like, subscribe. Let me know below in the comments what kind of content you want to see next so that I can create relevant content for you. And I'll see you next time on the studio. Peace.